action. So if you're able to be consistent, and trust me when I tell you, if you got a real woman on your hands, she has a PhD in paying attention. You know what I'm saying? Women learn our patterns, our trends, our habits, our likes, our dislikes, our idiosyncrasies, our pet peeves. And the moment that we flip-flop on them, the moment that we're inconsistent, the moment we change stuff up, they gonna know it. If you wear your left sock to a certain height and you mess around and change it, she gonna know it, right? If you take a shower and you wash your face first and then you wash your body, and then all of a sudden one day you wash your body first and then your face last, she got some questions. And so
why are you doing that?
so you got, and I'm saying this humorously, but I'm very true.
Welcome to the More Love Connection podcast. This is your host, Jenard D. Moore. Before we start the show, we officially want to invite you to become a Patreon for the More Love Connection podcast. If you don't know what Patreon is just a way to support your favorite podcasters or content creators. For just as little as $1 a month, you can officially support the More Love Connection podcast. If you're interested, we'd love to have you as an official More Love Nation supporter. So go over to www.patreon.com/MLCXN. Again, that's www.patreon.com/MLCXN. If you become an official supporter, you'll get access to behind the scenes content. You'll get access to guests. You'll be able to know who the guests are before we even announce on social media, and a plethora of other things. So think about becoming a More Love Connection podcast supporter. We'd be honored to have you as an official supporter. Again, that's www.patreon.com/MLCXN. For just as low as $1 a month, you can officially support the podcast. Now, let's jump right over to the episode.
All right, More Love Nation, I am back with another episode. Today we have a very, very special guest on the podcast, someone whom I met on Clubhouse. As you all know, we have had several Clubhouse guests. If you have not joined Clubhouse, you are missing out. Android users, you can now join Clubhouse. Click the link in our bio and you can join Clubhouse from your phone as well as from your desktop or your laptop. But again, today we're going to kick off our Husbands 101 series. And this series is going to be jam-packed with some special guest speakers. Actually, all of the speakers for this series I met on Clubhouse. Husbands who have joined in our conversations through the Millennial Marriage and Relationship Advice Club. They've jumped on stage, shared some valuable content. And I said, hey, I got to get these guys to talk about being a husband. You know, what does it mean to be a husband? But again, today we're kicking off our Husbands 101 with a very, very special guest. I'm going to do his intro, but I'm going to bring him on screen. Y'all, want you welcome to the stage and to the podcast, Pastor Harris. How are you doing today?
Hey, sir, man, I'm so honored to be here. Hey, Mama, I made it. Look, y'all, I'm here. Mark me present.
Hey, man, we greatly appreciate you. So before we go any further, to all of our listeners, make sure you all go and follow Pastor Christopher Harris over on Instagram. His Instagram is CJ Harris1. Again, that's CJ Harris1. You can click down in the show notes if you're watching on YouTube and it'll take you right to his Instagram. If you're listening to the podcast, look at the show notes. Also, make sure you check out his website, ChristopherJHarris.com. He has an amazing website. I got caught up on this website the other day when I was looking at it, and I was like, man, this dude right here is bad. Y'all hear me? So again, check out his website, ChristopherJHarris.com. It'll be linked down below. And he is a fellow podcaster. He has a podcast called the Wise Idea Podcast. I have listened to several episodes, and I'm going to ask him a question that he always starts off with his podcast once we get started. And another thing here, He is a founder and the CEO of Diverse Church Jobs. We're going to get into it. I want y'all to check it out. It's linked down in the show notes. But again, Pastor Harris, thank you for joining the podcast. And so the question that you always start off with on your podcast is, how are you?
Man, I'm doing fantastic, man. It's an amazing season that we're in. If I'm honored, there's some days where I'm a little sleepy, a little tired, but that comes with the territory, right? And
right.
I am a delivered, reformed workaholic, and so I recognize how to work hard, but I also know how to rest well, and have an amazing family. So blessed to be able to wear those hats, husband and dad, and all those kinds of things. But man, I'm just thankful for the privilege that God has given me right now, and it's a great season, man, and even excited about the things that are to come. So thank you for having me on today.
All right, now we're gonna go ahead and get this kicked off, and let me tell y'all a little bit of backstory really quick. So I was on Clubhouse one day. I don't know what if he was hosting a room. I don't know, but I heard Pastor Harris speak, and I said, let me click on this guy's head. Now, if you know anything about Clubhouse, the only thing that you can see is somebody's face with a, I think it's gray circle that's around them when they're speaking, and then you can tap on their bio. So I heard him speaking. I was like, man, this guy's the truth. He's just spitting some fire. So I clicked on his bio, and then, he came into one of our rooms and shared, and we were actually wrapping up the room, and I just brought him up on stage and said, Pastor Harris, here's the question. And when I tell you this man just started preaching and just started flowing, I was like, whoa, wait, you got to slow down, because everything you're saying it was good. So let's go ahead and kick off our Husbands One-on-One series. First question I have for you, Pastor Harris, how long have you been married?
Yeah, man. So my wife and I have been going into year number 21. I can't believe that it's been that long, but yet it feels so very short. I'm going to borrow from this other pastor's quote one time. He said, the days are long, but the years are short. And I'm finding that to be very, very true.
Okay. So again, we're doing this series, Husbands One-on-One. And so the purpose of this series is to just give husbands some tools on how to succeed at being a husband. There's not really a manual on how to be a husband, but can you kind of tell me what is the purpose and what is the role of a husband?
Yeah. So I think, first of all, I think it's important for us to really unpack this idea of not only what a husband is, but what a husband is not. And to be clear, I think that there are different seasons of marriage that your marriage will require of you, where your hats and your responsibilities and your perspective has to shift. Here's something that I didn't know, Jenard, when my wife and I got married. I was her husband, but I wasn't her man yet. Right? I was her husband, but I wasn't her man yet. And in my case, and I know this is not the case maybe for everybody, but in my case, I married a daddy's girl, right? And when you marry a daddy's girl, or you marry someone who has an affinity towards their background, whether that's an uncle, whether that's a grandfather, a man figure in their life. And I don't, by the way, a side note, I don't buy into the notion that every man is not doing their job. In fact, for me, the vast majority of the men that I come across are actually killing it and crushing it, right? And so I push back pretty heavily against that notion that men are not doing what they're supposed to do. But that being said, if a husband gets connected to a woman who has some strong men in their life, it's going to take him some time, that new husband, to win her trust. Now, hopefully, they've had a long enough engagement that on ramp to building that trust is not as long. But trust, no, that's not the right word. The confidence that she needs to have or will have in you in the future takes time for you to build that. And the only way that you get that is through your consistent everyday activity, your consistent everyday action. So if you're able to be consistent, and trust me when I tell you, if you got a real woman on your hands, she has a PhD in paying attention. Do you know what I'm saying? Women learn our patterns, our trends, our habits, our likes, our dislikes, our idiosyncrasies, our pet peeves. And the moment that we flip-flop on them, the moment that we're inconsistent, the moment we change stuff up, they gonna know it. If you wear your left sock to a certain height and you mess around and change it, she gonna know it, right? If you take a shower and you wash your face first and then you wash your body, and then all of a sudden one day you wash your body first and then your face last, she got some questions. And so
why you doing that?
so you got, and I'm saying this humorously, but I'm being very honest, right? That our women study us. And so with all of that said, I believe at the beginning of your marriage, your goal ought to be is that you're getting into a rhythm with another human being, right? That you're getting into a rhythm with this person and you're proving your worth. You're proving that you're pun intended here, that you're man enough for the job. And I think that's the beginning. At some point, when the confidence is established, and all of us have heard that phrase, that it takes a lifetime to build trust and a second to lose it. So the goal, once that trust is established, is to live the kind of life that trust is never violated or taken away or anything like that. But I think the second thing that has to happen, or at least for men to consider that are husbands, is, if we're not careful, particularly based upon the blueprints that we have, we could see our role as a husband as a manager. And I think that's dangerous. Yeah. Right. Now, if you think about this for a moment, any of us that have had real jobs, especially if we've had more than one job, we've encountered two kinds of bosses. We've encountered a boss who is a manager, and the only thing that they're concerned about is the bottom line. They're concerned about policies and procedures. They're concerned about the process, the finished product, and that's it. They didn't care less if your allergies are messed up. They didn't care less if your child had a meltdown on your way to drop them off to school. They didn't care less if you had a flat tire. You're supposed to be to work at 9 o'clock. You should have left early enough to be able to get your flat tire changed and still be to work on time. Those are managers. Right. But we've also often had bosses who were leaders, right? Now, leaders don't necessarily give you a pass. They hold you accountable, but they take into consideration that you're a human being. And so there's empathy there. There's grace there, right? The leaders are navigating the culture. They're paying attention to the rhythms of people, right? If you got to leave an hour early because your child has a special event at school, they're like, oh yeah, well, you've been killing it. You've been getting your job done. Go ahead and leave an hour early. Just make sure that, if the project is due Friday, that you get the project due Friday. They ain't thinking about all that other stuff, right? They're not hammering you on the product. And I believe, this is just my own guesstimate here, and I don't have any research to prove this. This is my opinion. I believe that most husbands start out in marriage wearing the manager hat more than the leader hat. And it creates problems because there's no grace when you got the manager hat on. There's no empathy when you have the manager hat on, right? And to be clear, there are things in our marriage that we have to manage, right? We got to manage the bills. We got to manage the budget. You got to keep the house clean. Those are management duties. But in terms of our primary emphasis and approach to our spouse is we've got to be a leader, right? And I think it's important too to understand that by and large, and again, there's exceptions to this, by and large, women want safety and security. And so if you're not helping to provide that, then in some ways you're not needed.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And you've got to be able to make yourself needed. You've got to be able to make your wife know that you are needed in this equation. Last thing that I'll say is this. If you ask the average husband, to name 10 men that he knows personally who are happily married as a husband, most men would struggle with that. So, Jenard, here's my question, brother. If I can't name 10 men who are happily, successfully married that I know personally, then where do I get my image and understanding the expectation of what it actually means to be a husband?
The answer to that is media, social media, TV, reality TV.
Yep. And that's dangerous.
Yeah.
Right? Because because media doesn't show you the full picture. Right? So when I was growing up, Cliff Huxtable in the Cosby Show was the standard.
Right.
But as you get older, you realize, wait a minute, how in the world did you have a black family in the 80s? Think about this, Jenard. You got a doctor and you got a lawyer, but they always home. This wasn't no pandemic, man. They wasn't on no Zoom call, right? But they were always home.
Right.
I think you could probably count on one hand, maybe a few fingers, black family now in the 80s. And they never went to church regularly. That wasn't common in the 80s.
Right.
Okay. And so my point is that even looking at Cliff as the standard did not factor in some of the other realities that we had to deal with. Okay? They didn't have any economic challenges. Right. They didn't have a bad neighborhood. They lived in a great neighborhood. And so what we've got to do is we've got to find out what the blueprint is. We've got to find out what the standard is. Where can we get these pictures from? And while I do believe that it is critical and important for you to have human beings, men, that are husbands that you can look to for advice and for wisdom, you also got to go to scripture. You got to see some examples in scripture, because I believe that if you want to know how a thing functions, you go to the person that created it. And in our case, I believe God created us. So we got to go to the blueprint that he left in order to make that make sense. So hopefully that's at least some context for you.
Man, no, that was excellent. And I want to kind of back up a little bit. You know, one of the things that you talked about was the confidence that a woman needs in you, you know, to make you ultimately her man. So you're saying, and I'm just paraphrasing, you're saying, and just talking for our listeners, when she says yes to will you marry me, that doesn't make me her man. And when she says I do, it still don't make me her man. I'm her husband, but I'm not her man, because I still need to put in that work to show her that I'm capable of being the man that you need. Correct?
Absolutely. If you ask the average man who's married and happily married, how many years were you married before you felt like you got your legs underneath you, before you got a good rhythm? The average man is going to tell you probably between 5 to 10 years.
Woo, I'm at 5 now.
I was sitting down, Jenard, both of my grandparents have passed away now, but I was sitting down one day at my grandmother's house, my grandfather and grandmother's house. And my grandmother, you know, both of them were retired, but my grandmother retired. She was a cook. She was a chef. And she loved cooking, man. My grandmother could cook a full Thanksgiving meal in like 20 minutes. And I still don't know how she did it. And it would be some of the best food you ever had in your life. You hear what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But my grandfather, she would literally fix a full breakfast for my grandfather every single morning, right? And when I say a full breakfast, I'm talking about, you know, grits, eggs, bacon, catfish, pancakes, biscuits. You know, they got coffee, they got juice, stewed apples. You know, you name it. Okay, and so my grandfather was sitting there, and it was my aunt and my uncle who were visiting from Chicago, from Jacksonville, and they were just talking. And I'll never forget, man. My grandfather said, my uncle asked him a question, and my grandfather said, and at this point, I think they had been together like, I don't know, 30, 40 years or something, some like, you know, crazy good number. My grandfather said, yeah, I'm still just trying to figure it out. And I remember as a teenager hearing that, and like, even as a teenager that wasn't even close to being married, I'm like, yikes.
Wow. Yeah.
I'm like, you've been married 30, 40 years to this woman, and here you are saying, I'm still trying to figure it out. Which now that I'm on the other side of this and I've been married 20 years now, I'm saying I get it, because here's the deal, bro.
Mm-hmm.
The moment that you think you have marriage figured out, the moment that you get on cruise control is the moment you get in trouble.
Mm.
I can never not pay attention to what's happening with the temperature of my marriage, ever. The moment I stop paying attention, the moment I stop listening to and paying attention to both the verbal and the nonverbal, the spoken and the unspoken things that are happening with my wife, now I get in trouble.
Yeah.
Right? So when I'm talking to her on the phone, when we're texting, right? When I'm looking her in the face or I'm listening to her, I'm paying attention to not just what she's saying, I'm paying attention to how she's saying it. What are her cues? What's her body language saying? Is she engaged? Is she not engaged? I mean, all of those things matter because, right, I'm a leader, not just a manager. And a leader is always paying attention to the culture.
That's why I want to go to that leader and that manager thing, because I want to break down what you said, because I think you said so much about the role of a husband that was so good. And then, so just moment of transparency. So when I first got married, I was the manager type, and my wife and her family, they love Thanksgiving. And I never forget this. It was the first year we got married in August 2016. So Thanksgiving was coming up, and we were in the car. I never forget it. We were at a gas station, and we were talking about our plans for Thanksgiving. And so me being the God-fearing man, growing up in church, hearing that the man is the head of the house, the wife should submit, all the right ideology, wrong application. We sitting in the car at the gas station, and I said, I don't care if your family's going to Raleigh for Thanksgiving. We're going with my family. And when I tell you that was the wrong thing to say, and that was just me, again, going to what you're saying, not paying attention to what she's saying. Even in that moment, she's talking about, this is the only time that I really get to see my family because my brothers and sisters are spread out. We have family traditions. And my rebuttal to that was, well, we got family traditions too. Let's start our own, but that was me acting in that manager role. And this is what we're going to do. I don't care how you feel, what you think, where I should have been in that leader role and saying, okay, I hear what you're saying. I hear you're saying you want to spend time with your family. This is nothing against my family, but that's how I took it. So can you kind of talk about that leader role and the misconception of that dynamic of putting your foot down and actually leading,
Yeah, very rarely do you actually have to put your foot down in a healthy situation, right? I think, and these are all, I'm saying this, but these are all lessons where, candidly, I had to bump my head, right? You go through dynamics and situations where you learn, okay, that don't work, don't do that again, right? At least if you're paying attention and you're wise. Now, there's some people I know that keep making the same mistake over and over, and that's just not wise. But here's something that Jenard, how do I want to say? Here it is. Questions more than statements. So let's just take what you just did, what you just talked about, the transparency you just shared.
Yeah.
All in the car at the gas station. Your wife says, we're going to my family's house for Thanksgiving. At that point, right, be quick to listen and slow to speak. Now, immediately your flesh says, what you mean? Like,
yeah,
first of all, who are you to make this decision for me?
Right.
Second of all, how are you going to make a decision and then tell me what to do and not include me in it?
Right.
Third of all, my family just as important as your family, right? So, I mean, those are all natural human responses.
Right.
So nobody's negating those natural human responses. But wisdom says, okay, so babe, let me ask you this. What were your thoughts about how we could make sure that both of us see both of our families and we both can have a good time? Now, what did I just do? I created a dialogue.
Right.
When the Bible says in Proverbs, a soft answer turns away wrath, really what it's saying is, did you leave the room? Did you approach the conversation where you left room for dialogue? Or did you make a statement where you shut the other person down and the only response they can have is to come back out fighting, to come back out swinging? Right? Because in marriage, You cannot be happily married and it's a monologue. I don't care how shy and quiet and meek and mild and humble your spouse is. Marriage will pull stuff out of you that you didn't know was in there.
Man, I'm telling you.
Listen, you can have people that have never, ever used profanity in their life. The moment they get married, all of a sudden, they throwing words out left and right, and they like, where did that come from? I didn't even know that was in there.
Right.
So, so the deal is, it's really about a dialogue, and it's about the fact that we're not enemies, right? Mm-hmm. I think one of the revelations that I got from early on in our marriage, and the first 18 months of our marriage was hell on earth, man. It was difficult. I didn't think we were gonna make it. Like, I really didn't. I did not think we were gonna make it, man. In the back of my mind, I was all in. I'm pausing because I'm sitting here saying that's not possible. I was getting ready to say that in the back of my mind, I was all in, but I was prepared for her to walk out the door. And maybe that as I'm saying that out of my mouth, maybe I wasn't all in.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe in the back of my mind, I was actually protecting myself from what I felt like was going to be the inevitable. Right.
Wow.
Which in and of itself, and we've talked about this, we being my wife and I, we've talked about this in some marriage conferences that we've done and that kind of thing. And I think the women have to deal with this more than anything, because even when you look at historically what women have been told, women have been told, keep you a piece of money, hide it just in case he get crazy, keep you some clothes ready that if you need to leave, you can leave. I mean, all of that, while well-meaning, is not healthy for marriage, because what it does is it puts in the back of your mind that you need a plan B in case this don't work out. Right. And my posture is, and my wife's posture is, no, we got to figure this out because this has to work. Yeah. Like, we got to figure this out. And so what I was going to say earlier is, we had to learn the lesson that the other person that I'm married to is not my enemy. Right? They're not my enemy. So if she wins, I win. If I win, she wins. And we both need to win. We need to figure out how to make this thing work. And I think, even with that, well, we may deal with that later. We'll talk about that later. But does that answer your question a little bit?
That answers my question. And I liked how you presented that you need to create a dialogue. And one of the things, and I've always heard, the two becoming one is hard, and it is because you're merging two cultures into one. Like, this is our family culture. But something that you said, I'm actually going to bring it up because I take notes when I'm in Clubhouse.
Okay. Uh-oh.
Yeah. I'm in trouble now. No, I take notes, but it's literally what and this is where I wanted to go. So one of the things you said, and I want you to see if you can see, you probably can't see me scrolling, but I got a whole list of notes from Clubhouse. But one of the things you said in one of the rooms I was in, you said the enemy is fighting agreement.
Yes.
And then right after that, you said we got to be willing to fight together and not fight each other. And so even with creating that dialogue, how do you do that in those heated moments? And I know you talked about, asking the questions, but how do you remain on the same team in those heated moments?
Yeah, I think one of the things, and these are popular ideas now. You got to remember, 20 years ago, while counseling was an option and emotional health was terminology that existed, it wasn't as prevalent as it is now.
Right.
I don't want us to undersell and underspeak to the idea that in marriage, each individual has to be healthy as they can possibly be. Not just from a physical health standpoint, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. You got to be healthy. Right. Because when you're not healthy, you interact, deal with, respond with out of that dysfunction, out of your own health, unhealthiness, right? James chapter number 4 says, literally, it asks the question. It says, where do wars and fights come from? It asks the question, where do wars and fights come from? And then the same verse answers the question. it says it comes from a fight within you. So you're fighting other people because you're fighting with yourself, but the fight within you, you can't damage yourself, so you try to damage other people. Right?
Can I go run around the house real quick and come right back?
Well, I'm just saying that's what the word says.
Yeah.
Right? And so for me at least, I had to learn that oftentimes when my wife would say something or she'd do something or we were fighting about something, what I'm really fighting is I'm fighting the fact that she just bruised my ego. Or maybe I'm fighting about the fact that now it's been exposed that I'm not as good of a communicator at the home as I probably needed to be. Or maybe I made some assumptions that I shouldn't have made, right? So I'm being exposed, right? So the argument is really a mirror of me.
Yeah.
And so I've got to take a step back. That's why the Bible says, be angry, but don't sin. Acknowledge your full emotions, but be wise enough, be healed enough, be mature enough that you give your words an agenda, and then you know what to say at the right time in the right place. Because if you don't, now you're getting ready to say something and you just throwing out words without an agenda, it's going to come back however you threw it out.
Right.
And so I think, to your question, Jenard, I think it's really, really important to really take a step back and to make sure that you as a person, you're healed. Because then as you deal with your spouse, you're healed, you're treating this person and interacting with this person from a healed place. When that happens, I think it's then important to know your person's rhythm. I talked about that earlier, jokingly about the wives, but husbands, we don't often study our wives in that way. And yet the scripture actually tells us to do that. If you read 1 Peter, it talks about study your wives, right? Basically, translation, Christopher Harris translation, get a PhD in whatever your wife's name is. My wife's name is Carmen. So I need a PhD in Carmenology, right? And when I do that, so for example, if it's August, my wife, because of the job that she has, the industry that she's in, I know that there's certain periods of the year where she's going to be more busier than others. Okay. So I go to her during one of these busy times and I say to her, hey, I want us to have a couples weekend, 2-3 days, and we're just going to go off. I already know she's going to say no, she can't do it. Like, it's just not reasonable.
Right.
So first of all, me asking her that is not being wise. Number two, I'm asking for a fight because now I'm asking her something that I know she can't say yes to. And then I got to save face and then argue and try to make up a lie that you don't prioritize me. No, she prioritized me. It's just the wrong time. You asking at the wrong time. You setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And man, we could use that example in so many different ways. Like you already know, by and large, if y'all getting ready to go out of town for a big event, your wife wants to look nice. So why are you going to tell her you can't go to the store? You already know. Even if she's going to buy just some accessories, she wants some new earrings to go out of town with. If she want a new bracelet, right? She gonna get her hair done, her nails did. So she gonna do something new. You already might as well go ahead and prepare yourself for that.
Right.
And so I just think we don't study our wives enough to even know how to navigate that. And then finally, I think it's really, really important to be willing to see that other person as my best friend, as the person that wants the best for me. And when I see that person as a person that wants the best for me, even if what they're saying to me right now doesn't feel good, in the back of my mind, I know that this person has my best interest at heart, and they're not going to say something to me that is going to that is designed to ruin me. Now, let me just say parenthetically, for the wives that may be listening in, because wives always listen to stuff.
They always listen. Yeah, they listen. What they talking about? What they talking about?
Yeah, the wives always listen to stuff like this. If it was the ladies, when you go to the wives series, the fellas ain't gonna listen to that, right? but as husbands, the wives want to hear. So the wives that are listening to this, I think it's important for wives to know that oftentimes, and this is not every case, but oftentimes, it takes a lot for a man to be transparent. It takes a lot for a man to be to let their guard down and to bare their souls with that woman. And when they do that, it is absolutely, I can't understate this or overstate this enough, Jenard. That woman, that wife cannot ever, and I'm using the word ever, take that transparency, take that brutal honesty, take that vulnerability and use it as a weapon in the future. Because if that ever happens, that man may not ever open up again in full transparency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's so crazy that you say that, because did a room on Clubhouse in our club, the Millennial Marriage and Relationship Advice Club, which, by the way, is the largest marriage club on Clubhouse. I'm excited and glory to God for that. But we did a room, and I hosted a room called Are You My Safe Space? And we had a panel of individuals, it was actually mostly men, that came up and talked. But literally everything you just said was basically the conversation. How some men opened up to their wives and they weaponized that vulnerability and use it against them later in the argument. It's like, well, I told you that, and confidentiality and with the trust that you were going to hear me. But that's so true. That's so true. And I want to go here. That first statement that you made, the enemy is fighting agreement.
Yeah.
What position do husbands need to be in to fight, to fight against that or to combat that?
First of all, to make sure that the vision is clear. What's the vision, man? What are we working towards, right? What's the destination? So I'm asking you to get in the car and go on a journey with me. Did I tell you what to bring?
Right.
Did I tell you where we were going? Did I tell you how long it was going to take? Have I built your capacity for the fact that we're getting ready to take a cross-country trip, right? Anybody that's ever traveled will tell you that it takes one mindset to go an hour's drive. It's a whole other mindset when we get ready to go and get in the car. We're going to be in the car for 48 hours. Listen, man, I got to get myself together. If I'm getting ready to be in the car 48, listen, I have gotten to a place in my life, Jenard, where generally speaking, any trip that's about 4 hours or more, I'm headed to the airport.
And see, I'm the opposite. Let's get that road. We gone.
Bless you, man. Bless you, brother.
I'm opposite. Yeah.
Listen, man. So anything about 4 hours, I'm like, Lord, we need to go ahead. Listen, I'll see y'all when we get there. Okay. I'm gonna get this Uber from the airport, and I'll see y'all at the Airbnb when we get there. Okay. But my point is, your marriage is that trip, right? If you're driving the vehicle, have you prepared your wife for this journey ahead? Where are we headed? Where are we going? Have you communicated clearly, right? I can be in the car with my wife, and let's just say, matter of fact, yesterday, me and my wife, we did our weekly dinner and date day. It was not date night, it was date day. And you get older, sometimes you got to do stuff earlier because you're tired. And so we were on the way back, and I made a rookie mistake, bro. I made a rookie mistake yesterday. No big deal, right? Because we've been married long enough now, it ain't a big deal. But when we first got married, this would have been a big deal. But I was in the back of my mind, I was like, you know what? Let me stop by this store real fast while I'm out. While we're out, and even stopping by the store that I was going to go to, I know she enjoys that store. So I'm like, we're just going to go to the store. So I stopped, I got gas, she's in the car, got back in the car, and I just, I get in the car, and now I'm driving. Now, she knows the route that it takes to get to home. In her mind, we on the way home. I go a different route, and she looks up, she's like, oh, where we going? Now, when we first got married, because I was fragile, I'd have been like, why are you asking? Just ride, right?
Oh,
but
Lord.
Now I understand that the question is, she just wants to be involved in the process.
Yeah.
She just wants to be included in the process. So I made a rookie mistake. I said, oh, I'm sorry. Notice what I did. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought this, but I didn't share this with you. I was like, I'm thinking about, let's go back to this store right here, probably be in there for 15, 20 minutes, and then we'll head home. She's like, okay, cool. Now I started off with an apology because I know I missed it.
Yeah.
I didn't communicate the vision, right? I didn't communicate the destination. I didn't communicate the journey so that mentally she could be prepared for that. Here's what we got to know, man. Generally speaking, if a man is clear about where he's headed, if he can learn to communicate that to his wife well, generally she will be on board. And there it is. There are the two problems. The first problem is we don't have a clear vision about where we're headed. The second thing is we don't clearly communicate where we're headed to even get them involved in the process. So now they're over here. They don't know what to respond to. They don't know how to engage. They don't know how to prepare. You know, you got me going over here. I ain't dressed right. You know, now I'm looking bad. I'm looking flossed up and messed up and jacked up, you know, from the flow up and all this other kind of jazz. You should have told me this is where you want to go, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right?
Right.
And so we got to be able to get in front of that, communicate the vision clearly. We got to be able to involve them in the process, involve our wives in the process, communicate what we're thinking about. And then get feedback from them. We got to be willing to get feedback, right? And be open to that feedback. Be open to their thoughts and be willing to be flexible to know where we need to adjust, what we need to change, what we need to navigate, et cetera, et cetera. And then, man, this is probably the biggest part. We got to watch our tone, bro. We got to watch our tone, man. It's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And we think, well, we the man, so we just say anything how we want to say it. You can't do that, man. There's another grown person you're dealing with. This ain't no child.
Right.
So then you're going to talk to your spouse like they're a child and expect for them to respond like an adult? That ain't going to happen.
That ain't, yeah.
So anyways, I hope that answers the question.
Man, this is some good stuff. Want to take a quick commercial break and then we'll come right back and I have like 2 more questions for you. But if y'all have not done so already, make sure you stop and go and follow Pastor Harris on Instagram at CJHarris1 as ONE, not the number 1, ONE. Also check out his
I'm on every social media platform at CJ Harris ONE, including Pinterest.
Look, I thought I was the only man on Pinterest. I love Pinterest.
Hey man, come on. All the men on Pinterest unite. Come on.
Hey, look, I'm gonna follow you. I got so many boards. Look, my wife, I'll tell you this when we come. Well, I'll tell you before we go to break. When we first got married, she didn't know anything about Pinterest. And so I was like, you need to get on Pinterest. And then once she got on and learned it, she was like, why are you on Pinterest? And I was just like, look, you don't, it's a movement. It's a movement.
Hey, listen, you cannot have our man card because we're on Pinterest. All the real men on Pinterest unite. Let's go.
In the comments, if y'all watching this on YouTube, put hashtag Pinterest in the comments. But again, we're going to take a quick commercial break and we'll be right back with more with Pastor Harris. Hey, More Love Nation. If you all are enjoying this episode, stop what you're doing. Make sure you hit that like button. Also, go down into the comments if you're watching this on YouTube. Leave us a comment. If you're listening to this on your favorite podcasting platform, make sure you take a screenshot of you listening to the episode, head over to your Instagram, upload it to your IG stories, and tag at MoreLoveCXN. Once we see the notification, we'll share it with our audience. Also, make sure if you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform to leave a 5-star rating and a review. Reviews help new listeners find the More Love Connection podcast. So stop what you're doing, take the screenshot, leave a comment, just show some love. Another way that you can show us some love is by going to check out our website. Go to www.morelovecxn.com. Check out the merch tab. We have some sweatshirts, some hoodies. Go over and check out our merch tab. Also, for low as $1 a month, you can become an official supporter of the More Love Connection podcast. All you have to simply do is go to www.patreon.com/MLCXN. If you have not done so, make sure you subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the YouTube, share it with your friends and your family. Again, that's the More Love Connection podcast. You know you like it. Go ahead and share it. Now, let's get right back to the episode. All right, guys, man, again, if you all have not done so, make sure you all follow Pastor Harris. This is an amazing episode. I am so excited to have him on the show. We're going to bring Pastor Harris back on. Pastor Harris, something you said, and I kind of want to, and everything you said, I really feel like it's built upon, like it's layer after layer after layer, and it's step to step to step. But the first thing you talked about was the confidence that a woman needs in order for you to be your man. Then we moved on to talking about leadership. And then we talked about, just how to stay in the fight, or how to fight the enemy, and having that clear vision. And then you one of the things that you just said was she's not going to follow you if she doesn't know the vision. But it goes all the way back to that first thing you said, and her having confidence in you. Even if you have a vision and she doesn't have that confidence that, hey, he's taking me and he's leading me in the right direction, she may not even follow you. So I feel like everything you've said has built upon one thing and another. So I appreciate that. And my last two questions that I have for you, and it's kind of the question that I threw at you in the last clubhouse that we were in together, was for the single man who was looking to be married. This is for husbands 101. We talked about, the social media and the reality TV, the model that they portray for husbands. But for the single man that's looking to be married, what should they be doing right now?
Wow, man. And I'll be honest with you. I have no idea what I said in that clubhouse room.
I know you was flowing.
So this answer is probably going to be different. I think, man, if we're honest, we do this in other places. And what I mean by that is we set a goal for something and we know how to pursue it, right? So you're Googling it, you're learning it, you're going to conferences on it, workshops on it. You're finding people that are in that space. You're asking questions of them. You're taking them to lunch, paying for their lunch, paying for their breakfast. You're calling them, you're texting them. You're a student of it, right? Because you're trying to learn, man, what am I getting ready to get myself into? Mm-hmm. I mentioned the whole healing idea earlier, that it's important for a person to get healed. I believe, I don't know if you have a diverse audience or not. I don't know what your audience background is. I'm unapologetically Christian. And I recognize that we may have people that listen to the podcast or to your platform that may not be. And so hopefully this is not offensive about what I'm about to say. But because of my convictions, I believe that marriage is a spiritual institution. And because of that, there's a level of spiritual warfare that is engaged with marriage. And I'm not saying that to scare people, but I am saying that to say that I believe that when you accept an assignment that's given by God, and marriage is an assignment given by God, that God gives you the grace you need as you honor him. He gives you the grace you need to manage that assignment. Okay. Case in point, I'll use myself as an example, use my wife and I as an example. We have a total of 4 children. Between our last to youngest child and our youngest child is a 10-year difference. Okay. The youngest baby, we candidly, we didn't anticipate her, right? She's what we call our surprise blessing. The Lord blessed us with her. And she's such a blessing to our family. We love her, right? We thought we were fast on our way to being empty nesters. Okay. So 2 years, 3 years before she's born, if you would have told us that you guys are going to have an extra child, or not an extra child, but another child, that you're going to now go back into diapers, you're going to be, up at night, you got strollers and, all of those things to do all over again, we would have looked at you like you were crazy and like, no, there's no way. But when we found out that my wife was pregnant, candidly, I mean, it took us a few days to kind of wrap our minds around that, like, man, we get ready to do this again, like for real, right?
Right.
When we actually came to that realization that she's pregnant and we accepted that reality, we also felt this new grace, this new empowering, because that when we talk about the grace of God, it's an empowering that God gives you for the assignment that he has for you. So when our child is born, now we have the capacity. Now we have the mindset. Now we have a new rhythm. Now we have a new cadence, a new perspective, because this is a grace that God has given us for it. There's some things that you can learn prior to marriage. There's some things you're only going to learn once you get married. And because that's the case, it is unequivocally necessary that you have the right character, that you have the right mindset. I keep saying that you're healed, right? It's good for you to have people in your life that's going to check you and hold you accountable, right? Who's your pastor? Who's your pastor that's going to say to you, this is where you need to grow over the next 6 months? Here's your growth plan, right? Who's the person that knows your past well enough to call you on your own dirt, right? You need somebody in your life that's going to do that, right? You need to evaluate. There's this thing called a Genogram. You need to evaluate your Genogram. And what that does is, so very similar to how the doctors, when you go for an annual visit, they ask you questions about, do you have a history in your family of high blood pressure? Do you have a history in your family of sinus issues? Do you have a history in your family of headaches? All those kinds of things. The Genogram looks at that from a life pattern and looks at that from a spiritual standpoint. Is there a history in your family of divorces? Is there a history in your family of children out of wedlock? Is there a history in your family of people running from the faith, right? So you need to be able to evaluate that as a person, right? And as you do this deep dive on your own life, what you're doing is you're providing yourself with the tools that you need to know how to navigate marriage when you do get married, because it's going to test you in ways you're not prepared for it to test you. That's what I would say to single men who are listening in, who are thinking about getting married.
And we're going to wrap up with this, because I have a lot of guy friends who listen. And one of the conversations that we often have is, should I go to marriage counseling? And even for the people who are married, should I do premarital counseling? Should I continue marriage counseling afterwards? What would you say to that?
Without hesitation, absolutely. Because what it does is, my wife and I are getting ready to start a coaching network for couples who are thinking about engage. We actually have multiple groups in there. We're going to have a coaching network for couples who are thinking about to get engaged, a coaching network for couples who are engaged, and a coaching network for couples who are already married. And really what it does is it simply gives you the tools that you need to know how to navigate the responsibilities that you have, right? It doesn't stop the problems from happening. It doesn't stop the arguments from taking place, but it gives you the tools that you need to successfully navigate marriage. That's what it does.
Gotcha. Last question for you, and we'll wrap this thing up.
Yeah.
If you could give one charge to the husbands that are listening, what would that charge be?
Find something that you need to apologize for and go and apologize today.
Ooh.
Find something that even if you don't feel like you got it totally wrong, but you're growing with, just go to your wife today, this afternoon, and say, you know what? I've been growing in this area, and I realize in the past you extended grace to me, and I just want to say thank you. And I want to apologize for those times I missed it, but I want to say thank you for staying with me and sticking with me as I've been growing.
That's it.
Let me just tell you something. Not only will you grow in your leadership capacity, but tonight's gonna be a good night.
Man, I love it. I love it. I love it. Again, if you all have not done so, make sure you follow Pastor Harris on Instagram and all social media platforms, including Pinterest at CJ Harris 1. That's ONE, not the number 1. It'll be linked down in the show notes. Also follow go to his website, which is ChristopherJHarris.com. And you said your marriage network, that'll be coming out. What time frame will that be coming out?
We're going to be looking at that in January of 2022. So I don't know, when people are listening to this.
Oh, no, this is coming out next week. Oh, this is going to be coming out next week.
January of 2022. So, our marriage ministry is called Full-Time Marriage Ministry, Full-Time Marriage Teaching Ministry, because we believe marriage is full-time. And so they can go to my website, ChristopherJHarris.com, and go under marriage help, and all the details will be right there. It's not there yet, but it's coming soon.
It's coming soon. And also make sure y'all go and subscribe to his podcast, which is the Wise Idea Podcast. With that, Pastor Harris, thank you for being on the More Love Connection podcast. This has been amazing. I cannot wait for this to come out. I learned a lot from this. So again, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much, man. It's my privilege, and I speak blessings on you guys, on you and your marriage, you and your wife and your marriage, and also on all the stuff that you guys are doing to help other couples.
We greatly appreciate it, Lemmy. All right, More Love Nation. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Hey, More Love Nation. If you've enjoyed this content, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button. That way you can be notified every time we release a new episode. Also, make sure you check out the video right here